Hello guys, LukeJ speaking. Welcome to episode 28 book reviews, and we're going to continue off with Bob Barker's Priceless Memories right now. Let's get, shall we? See what we got for us. We're left off with chapter 6, so here we go. Let's do it anyway, right now. Let's get, shall we? See what we got for us. Anyway, now chapter 6, Tilly, What a Mom. Now, before we begin this, I found the book, anyway, because, at this time frame, the screenful documents, for the past two episodes were basically lost, and I found the book somewhere, and it was right in my brother's closet, so there you go on that. Anyway, I haven't said that the three most influential people in my life were Dorothy Joe, Ralph Edwards, and my mother, Madelia, or Tilly, that is. Anyway, she was called. Anyway, I have written about Dorothy Joe and some of the wonderful years we had together. And of course, Ralph Edwards gave me my first opportunity in national television to become a dear friend. Okay. But first there was my mother. She was the one that raised me single-handedly from a young age after my father died. She was an ordinary woman. She taught me, loved me, encouraged me, and instilled in me values and principles that has carried me and been handful me throughout my life and career. As I have said, I have lived a blessed life. Without a doubt, one of the most profound blessings in my life has been the love and upbringing I received from my mother. Next page. I'm not going to show the pictures until later on the later episodes. Anyway, my mother, Adela Torian, how we pronounce it, was born on October 18th, 1898. Okay? In Elmwood, New York, the daughter of Mandarin minister. He come over the island, come over the Irish rocker, Phil Lynott, by the way. Anyway, I met my grandmother in MS New York. Wow. We have a church and preach regularly. Wow, okay. They have 5 daughters and a son. One of the daughters has a respiratory problem, and the doctor suggested they have moved to drier climate. Okay. They chose South Dakota. The winters are very cold there. But South Dakota is dry. He preached in Miller, South Dakota, Arlington, South Dakota, and ended up in Hot Springs, South Dakota, which is out in the Black Hills, an absolutely beautiful part of the state. Okay? Makes sense in any way. But anyway, which I asked my mother why my grandfather moved from church to church as he had. Okay? She replied, maybe he did so that he could use his best sermons more than once. Okay? I don't know whether she was kidding or not. Mother told me about a young male girl that her father brought home one day. Okay? She described the girl as a real character, okay? Immediately upon arrival, the goat considered himself a full-fledged member of the family. And that's the way everyone treated him, okay? When the children ran and played outside, the goat joined and enjoyed every moment of it. Although he continuously tried to come in the house, apparently my grandmother drew the line of that. Okay? Makes sense in any way. However, the goat did find a way to check up on what was going on in the house. Okay? He learned to get up on the chicken coop and watch the family through the large living room window. Okay? One day, my grandmother made grape jam and threw the grape skins on the trash. Okay? with the skins for minutes, like that. I haven't announced this word, sorry. This previous goat, curious goat, something like that, by the furious grape skins, okay? And of course, he ate them. A bit later, someone looked out the window and said, "Quick, come look at this goat." Okay? My mother said that the goat was prancing around on his head legs, okay? Waving in front hooves in the air. She had every bit of him as he was dancing, okay? My grandma must have some idea what was wrong with the goat. I don't know what's going on with the goat, so don't ask me why. But anyway, he went straight to the trash and confirmed that it was fermented grape skins were missing. My grandfather returned and came back to the house and said, "That goat is drunk." Yes. When my mother graduated from high school in Arlington, South Dakota, when she was validated of her class, she left home permanently. She went to college in Mitchell, South Dakota, Western University. His decision was to leave home and seek educational achievements, okay? Entirely of my mother, she was very independent, and she will always put high value on education of all kinds, okay? While she was in college, she worked at a grocery store, paying for room and board, okay? Makes sense. And she always got good grades. Excuse me, okay, anyway. Mother was the oldest of the 6 children in her family, okay? And her father could not afford the college. Wow. My mother could never let everything stop her when she had her mindset. She was just a kid herself, a teenager, but here she was, living away from home, but working while at attending college, something like that. So, excuse me, anyway. There was she kind of woman. Mom was may had to work and to pay a room and board, and may have to be tough finding enough time to study so she could have made extra grades, but I also think she had time and thoroughly enjoy college life. I'm looking for a next page. Anyway, couple of her college yearbooks. The book of photographs taken with an old Kodak box camera. Wow, okay. During years at Dakota Westland, okay? Makes sense anyway. Both her yearbooks and photographs reflect lots of friends and lots of fun, okay? Mom belonged to several organizations and clubs, both communist and social. She played roles in some of the university's dramatic productions. Besides Mom's college yearbooks, I also learned that she had been quite an athlete in Dakota's Western. Wow. I was probably impressed with a picture of her riding of a hurdle, something like that. Sorry about that. Anyway, moving on. I said, "Mom, you look great in that picture. Wow." Mom smiled and said to me with mock indignation, okay? "Young man, I know you I have you know that the time that picture was taken, my measurements were actually the same as the measurements of Miss America that year." Wow, okay. Makes sense. Anyway, one of Mother's friends was Dakota Westman's was Francis Case. Wow, okay. Same name as Frankie, like my grandmother Jarvis was in the time. But anyway, was later represented South Dakota, the United States Congress from 1947 until his death in 1962. Wow, okay. He spent the years in 1947 to 1950 in the House of Representatives from 1951 to 1962 in the Senate. Wow. Kind of reminds me of the, let's say, John F. Kennedy references from Robert and Jim. If he's got two, one was watching in heaven right now, and the other one is watching us right now. And I do miss Jim because Jim Lair was one of my first inspirations growing up, and Robert McNeil was the second because I grew up with these two journalists growing up, but that's just me. Anyway, I remember being a mother one day when she was campaigning for the office of Todd Kelly, sub-president of schools. Wow, okay. She crossed trails from Francis Case someplace out of the prairie. Wow, okay. He was campaigning for the president's term in the House of I can't pronounce this word. Sorry. Representatives or something like that. Sorry. During the combination, something like that. Excuse me. Mom mentioned that I enjoyed reading military books. And I thought that I would like to go to West Point someday. Senator Case told me, Billy, you study hard, and if I am still in the Congress, that you graduate from high school, I said that you had appointment to West Point. That's a good thing. Knowing that Francis Case is still in Congress when I graduated from high school, he's still in Washington, D.C. Well, that's a good thing, even though the bad news is Washington, D.C., because I was in there only once in 2013, is that high crimes. And it's too much to say because I'm not going there again because of difficulties, and plus it's just too much after Jim Lair's stuff, and I just don't know what to do next. Anyway, when I took Mom and Dorothy Joe back to their sightseeing trip in about 1955. Okay, makes sense. Anyway, so the case, make sure we have saw and did everything a tourist should see and do in Washington. With apologies with the Washington Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, etc., etc. One of the highest highlights of the journey was having a bowl of the famous Senate bean soup with Senator Case in the Senate dining room. After Mother finished college, she get set out on her own and became a high school teacher in the Rice River, South Dakota. Makes sense in any way. She really has and loved the respect for education, and that is something she instilled in me from a very early age. I was not around yet, but later I heard some stories about some of the remarkable things my mother had done during those early years. For example, when she was teaching in White River, the Great Worldwide Flu epidemic struck in 1918. You know, at the time, yes, the last thing happened during that, and then COVID-19 hit. It struck us in 2020. I was like freaking out, and then I became lost during those COVID years, you know. In addition to her teaching duties, my mother also nursed people all around White River, South Dakota. Makes sense in any way. But anyway, not many people today are aware of the danger of the damage of the flu epidemic, you know, because during the pandemic happened in 2020 till around 2023, I became deeply lost, you know, when it first happened, and I did not know what to say. I just feel like I need to, did not want to go home. I really love traveling a lot. I just didn't know what to do next. Anyway, the flu epidemic in 1918, something like that. Excuse me. Okay, anyway. Unlike the recent version of the flu, there was nothing to be held of the observation. More than 28% of the U.S. population contracted the flu. It was killed 2.5% despite victims. You know, something like this happened when more than so many people killed during the pandemic, COVID-19. It's too much. Anyway, what does that mean in terms of historical impact? To quote Genius Core's excluded book, Flu, in 1999, because I have to read that during sometime sooner or later in my book reviews or bedtime stories sometime soon. It was published by Forum Stars and it was written by these three people. Anyway, the pandemic affected the course of history and was terrifying impressions in the end of World War One. Okay? Killing more Americans in a single year that have died in the Battle of World War One. Now, when World War II happened, my family, at the time, we became lost. One of the people at the World War One was killed was one of my grandfather's brothers, Grandpa Jeffers' brother at the time. He was killed in World War One, and let me tell you something. It freaked me out when he died during the Battle of World War One. And Dad, if you're watching this, I am so freaking out right now at this point. But anyway, World War II, and Robert McNeil at the time was a child when World War II happened. The Korean War and the Vietnam War combined. It makes more sense. So there you go. Next page. My mother opened a clinic in White River with beds for 12 people. So that makes sense in any way. So there you go. Anyway, at the time when the entire towns were wiped out by the flu, she bravely brought medical attention to everyone in or near White River. She helped people all around the country, out of the farms, in small villages, everywhere in some instances of farms. She found people with the flu living in mud huts, along the edge of the third water. I was the same thing with Tilly. It's too much information right there. My mother had one time wanted to be a doctor, but medical school was out of the question. She would study biology and taught biology in school. At the time, yes, one of my biology teachers was, one of them at the time was Miss Ramus. If she watches now, she was telling me about one of the films I made about. Basically, it's called I can't remember the name, but I'm thinking it was basically about Biomy Project. It was basically an algebra project I worked on. And what it is, folks, is basically a school project on let's just say, Biomy, and the sequel is basically about pigs, and the third one, I don't know, it's just, and if you watch this, explain, it's one of the reasons I had to make this happen, so there you go. Anyway, she had learned about medicine as well. The later she would say something during the whole pandemic. She never lost a patient. Because I was just, and that whole thing happened, during the COVID-19 years. Anyway, she was very proud of that, and as well as she should be. It's an incredible record considering that more than an assembled 100 million people died of the terrible scourge worldwide. Wow. It's a Spanish flu at that time frame, For more than 50 years about the pandemic, Mother received letters about thanks for people that she had nursed. It was during the period of 1918 to 1919 that my mother met my father, Brian Barker, and with the rock outdoor kind of guy, an adventurous man who had grown up in the ranch of South Dakota. with cattle and horses. He was working in the electrical industry. He met my mother. And electricity was his infinity band. It was quite apparently an exciting time for the field. He and my mother married in 1920. Okay? About 100 plus years ago, as I'm taping this now. So I'm free now. But anyway. Mom accomplished him in the various jobs. After a year and a half or so, my mother became foreman and was highlighting for the state of Washington, where they live in a tent city near a little town called Darrington, where I arrived. This near city was created because this was still a Wild West. Okay. There are simply no towns near the rock area, whereas electric lines were being installed. I was born on December 12th, 1923. This will be 100 years ago in December, as I'm taping this now, because December 12th, 2023 will be his 100th birthday. And if you watch this, Billy, I'll be in your stream December 10th. Be look out for it. But anyway, they went to a doctor's house in Darrington when my mother gave birth. And a few days later, they returned with me when the tent city. But mom said it was a perfect place for the Indian father to propose. Wow, okay. One early evening, when my father was working with a high line in Washington, a problem just developed high in the tower. All my father's men had left for the day, so he decided to handle the problem himself. Unfortunately, his hooks were spikes climbing irons used by linemen to provide foothoods. I don't pronounce it. Sorry. Went out the tower, but several pairs belonging into the man were working that my father was located. Although they didn't work for him perfectly, my father led a pair and climbed the tower. Okay? But the cloak slept. My father came crashing down, sustained an injury to his hip joint that affected the spine in the matter of that prevailed 6 years later. Despite this tragic accident, my father and mother were spared the state of Washington, so much that when my father's responsibilities at High Line were completed. Wow. He signed for another job in Seattle. My mother said Tennessee was a lot for fun, but I've raided an apartment in Seattle. About this time in 1924, my mother's father, my grandmother, Robert E. Charleston, the minister, died back in South Dakota. My mother had the younger sisters and a brother, so there was still 2 daughters and a young son at home, and my grandmother, where she was now widowed, living in South Dakota. She, next page, anyway, decided that she was going to Southwest Missouri. It was actually have been a dream for my grandparents to retire on a farm in Missouri. And now my grandmother was determined to do as she and my grandfather was planned. She bought a farm in Houston, Missouri. I didn't know that was in Houston, Missouri, okay? She was a strong-willed, independent woman, just like my mother, okay? Makes sense anyway. The idea from her mother, along with her younger sisters, and a brother in the farm in Missouri did not sit well with my mother. She and my father were both concerned about the arrangement, something like that. Excuse me, anyway. After a short while, my mother and father moved from Washington and went down to Missouri to help my grandmother and try to make this farm work. And after a while, they convinced her that she was not cut out for farming. And my grandmother traded the farming for the house of Springfield, Missouri. My grandmother was ever inspiration to open a grocery store down the street of her house. My mother and father stayed there with her for a short time, but my father was still working electrical jobs near Springfield, in Texas, and Mexico. If you watch, Mom, born in Texas in 1961. Anyway, soon we moved to Palm, Texas, and then moved to Brownsville, Texas. And when the border, my father would go across the border every day. He was a foreman in a job. He started life in Mexico. It was right across Uruguay, in the town called Madrid, okay? How to pronounce his MC's name. Anyway, I was still a little small child then, around 4 and 5 years old. I guess you could say I was more than a certain amount of traveling in my blood because of my parents and their willingness to follow electrical jobs wherever they lead. That's my dad. Excuse me, okay, anyway. There definitely was a pioneering spirit in those days. That people did as they had to work in their family. As a side note, it's a violent memory in the Texas period of what they're visit by Charles Lindbergh to the airport in Brownsville. He made a short flight around the Atlantic Ocean in 1927. There was some time shortly after that, it was made a powerful impression on me. Wow, okay. Because I can remember to this day, my mom and dad took me out of the airport. Said my dad put me on the shoulders, and I can see Lindbergh and all the hoopla. It was an unforgettable thrill for me. After Texas, our family moved back to Springfield in 1928. Again, it would be my grandmother, and then my father had a good job there. He had employed the electrical pressure for the city of Springfield. He went out to buy a new car because there was to be a lot of driving in his work, okay? He never worked a day as a inspector. He was reported to be started on a Monday, okay? And he became very ill on the poor Friday. Wow. He never went well again. He died 13 weeks later. His crushed hip and never healed properly, and immediately it was rubbed up against his spine. As best as the medical profession could tell in those days, that it was kill him. Wow. Okay. My father died at home. I remember that I was sitting in my grandma's lap. She was reading me a funny from the newspaper. My mother came out into the bedroom and opened to me, and she said, "Billy, Dad has gone up and lived with Jesus." Okay? Yeah, it was sad as me, I know. Anyway, I was only 6 years old, but I understood he'd have died. The matter of which my mother chose to tell me was beautiful. It's heartbreaking. Next page. Anyway, there was no crying, no high spirits, even though there was sure self had suffered this terrible loss. I was too young to realize it was at the time, but a grand gentleness and tenderness of this pain, the picture that waited for me. My mother had to make this loss of my father more bearable for me. It was a tragic loss for his father at the time. Anyway, never the married musings of my dad. Excuse me, anyway. Weeks that my mother had ever cried in front of me. I'm sure she cried alone, but she never cried in front of me. Never lamented in her fate. Wow, okay. She just said to me that she and I were going to be partners, and this was where we were going to work. It was 1929, the Depression had arrived, and she was going to have a young widow with a 6-year-old son. Wow. My mother raised me on their own from the time I was 6 years old till I was 13 years old. For the Great Depression and during the Dust Bowl in South Dakota, there were very formative years. She was very remarried, and there was a long stretch of years when some extended family was her and me. Our bond that was already strong become even stronger. I was a child at that time. I was already recognized author Timmy Egan's. I can't pronounce this word. Sorry. Descriptions of the Dust Bowl when I was reading this book, The Worst Hard Time. Published by Houghton Mifflin in 2006. Stay here this. Earlier, the land had been overturned in the great spectacular, friendly to make money in the unsuitable wealth markets, when that wheat markets, when that, excuse me, okay, anyway. At a big run-up, price crash, the raids disappeared, but not just for a season, for the years on end. There was no sign of the whole of earth in place. The soul, I can't pronounce that, sorry. Caldwell fires, something like that. It started to blow. Dust clouds rolled up 10,000 feet and more in the sky, all like moving, okay? Mountains in the forest, their own. When the dust fell, it perverted everything: hair, nose, throat, kitchen, bedroom. Well, scoop shovel was needed just to clean the house in the morning. The eeriest thing was the darkest. People tied themselves in the bugs before going to the barn. It's a few hundred feet away, like a walk into space. Tower the life support center. Chickens rose in mid-afternoon. I'll tell you more about The Worst Hard Time in another bit, a book review series. Okay? So I'll let you know about that. Anyway. Moment I experienced the mystery of the Dust Bowl because after my father died. My mother turned to what she knew teaching. Okay? Makes sense. Anyway. She looked at a teaching job around Springfield and other nearby communities. But that times were hard then, and jobs were, I can't pronounce this word, sorry. I can still remember the time she came to home and from the interview, and she said that the superintendent of the school told her that she was qualified, and that she had impressed with her resume. Okay? He told her that he had to give the job to the man because the man had a family to support. And my mother said, I'm a woman and I'm too had a family to support. No luck. Okay? After that, she wrote to my father's older brother, who lived in Mission, South Dakota, and told him the situation, which I have not going to explain during this whole difficult times. Anyway. He got her job teaching at Mission High School. That's why we moved to South Dakota. Whoa. She was qualified and an excellent teacher. She had made the most in the opportunity. That was another thing she taught me. She's incredible work ethic and investment that study march forward in the face of upscales. Okay. As college athletes, experience paid off in their teaching career. Mom directed plays in both in White River and Mission. Okay, next page. Those White River productions were before my time. Okay, but I have the best seats in the house. When the Mission stewards trod the boards under Mom's direction. Okay, over 44 minutes while I'm taping this. Anyway. Makes sense. Anyway, the Mission High School plays was staged in the gymnasium Indian boarding school. Okay, when the Mission and the young actors played with full houses, nightly Friday and Saturday nights. That is Monday through Fridays, and the actors had to concentrate on their studies. And I was one of those people who want to focus on filmmaking. Okay. After she taught at the high school for 2 years, she became the principal of the school. By then, she ran the practical office and she became the Todd County's superintendent of schools. She also wrote an excellent history text about South Dakota over states. Okay, she was which was used, excuse me. Okay, throughout the school system from the 1930s until the early 1960s. Okay, when I was hosting Miss USA, Miss South Dakota freely told me that I had studied our state in U.S. in school. Anyway, I attended school in South Dakota from the 2nd grade up to around 8th grade. Okay, it was a marvelous education. I never had my mother for a teacher. But she always checked my homework. She always had to teach me, guide me, and stress and the pressures of education. There was never any questions about me going to college. Wow. This is just naturally amusing. She taught about my grammar school work preparation for college. She also encouraged me in everything I tried to do. Spread tradition of education that my mother established pay off in every step of my life. I learned a lot, love reading from an early age, because before I could read, the reading me, something like that, she got me a set of those classic children's stories called Joy's book that I still have. Wow, okay. I love to have her read to me. To this day, I'm 84 years old. I love read. I have read before during my bedtime story series and my book review series, which I read mangas and chapters, whatever can be happening. Anyway, my appreciation of reading books came to her. Okay, she read to me until I was learning to read. Surprisingly, the best thing that ever happened to me in terms of education was to get out the 1st grade in Springfield, Missouri. You go up to South Dakota with all the children in the 1st, 2nd grade, 3rd, and 4th graders were in one room. Okay. Next door is 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. At that time, yes, I was one of those students. In the late 90s, early 2000s, you have to go through kindergarten, and the next door is 1st grade. And then that time frame, you have to go through upper doors. You go to 2nd, 3rd, 4th. I was in West Forest Elementary School kid at the time, so don't ask me why. So there you go. Anyway, the moment I got there, my reading and learning took off. With my mother help, of course. I just had to start my 1st grade in Springfield, Missouri, about the time my father died. My 1st grade was about when you began to learn to read and write in the public schools about that era. It was a misfortune that the Springfield school system were experiencing at the time, and the version of John Dewey's progressive education. Makes sense in any way. When I was learning to read in the 1st grade, when they don't have any phonics at all. You know, at the time, yes, I do have phonics and just VHS tapes in the time when phonics anyway. We did not worry about the sound of letters. T is with the man and the hat on. And it was a haystack. And it was 2 haystacks. And so on. We can look at this word table. Because I cannot know where it was in the table, or window or door. My mother would ask, what's the sound of that word? I did not know anything about that sounds. As soon as I got to South Dakota, and that 2-room schoolhouse, which makes sense in any way, we were using phonics, and my reading ability took off immediately. It was wonderful. There was also an immersive church with libraries in the basement. The library became my playground on the cold winter day. Those cold winters up in South Dakota when the cool blizzards that shut down that school. Wow. So naturally, I stay home and read. Sometimes there were 2 or 3 days in the row where you could not. Next page. Anyway, we're almost done. Just 3 more pages left to wrap things up. Anyway, go to school, go to the blizzards, and I would read some more. I would stay in Springfield. There would be non-phonics, progressive education. I do not know if I would ever have learned to read. And in addition to read, my mother taught me how to drive, which makes sense anyway. Remember, she had a 2-drawer Chevrolet when I was probably around 11 or 12 years old at the time. Makes sense anyway. I would drive it out on the highway occasionally. With Mom potentially watching my every move. In those days, there was no paved roads in South Dakota. The highways were all gravel, and they would leave a bridge of down the middle. Okay, if you were going to pass something or go around, okay. You heard my step there. Please ignore that. But anyway, you would have to carefully cross the little ridge. She never really lost her temper with me. Good enough. Sometimes my mom just do that, and sometimes you won't. But anyway. But one time I found the car in the front of her office. There was a key in the engine. Not usual admission. I decided to go for a little spin. Mother came out in her office. As soon as I returned, and she was displeased with it. But mildly, I chose not to do that again. Thank you. I initially met my stepfather, Louis Roberta, something like that, while we were living in South Dakota. I was 13 by then, and they got married. He was a kind man to both me and my mother. I was along very well with him. He and my mother had a son, my half-brother Kent. Okay? My brother and I immediately bonded. We have been friends for a long lifetime. He was 14 years younger than I am. Wow. We have always had good times together. When they were married, I have just finished the 8th grade. We have moved back to Springfield, Missouri in 8th grade. And we moved back to Springfield, Missouri in 1947. Excuse me. Okay, anyway, I didn't mean to read some words like that. Anyway. That way my mother could be closer to my mother, okay? My stepfather was into the tire business there, which I worked so motorcycle, by the way. Anyway. I lived at home until I was 19. After I joined the Navy and soon thereafter married Dorothy Joe. Excuse me, okay, anyway. My mother taught me so many things. It would be so impossible to list them all. I would think I enjoyed her strong work ethic, okay? I certainly did my fair share with traveling and some risk taking, okay? And so did she. She gave me a lot of read and the ways of education. In a lifetime, she displayed a never-ending tenderness and affection of her mother and her family, which had a profound influence on me. She lost my father early, and I lost Dorothy Joe far too early. And I believe Mom's strength helped me endorse that loss. She shared her sense of humor with me, which no doubt helped develop one of me. That humor served me well in my career. She took care of me when there was nobody else. Later on, I took care of her. My mother lived to be 91 years old. Wow. Okay? Like what my mother was one of my inspirations for McNeil at the time. But anyway, she lived with me in my home in Hollywood. Okay? For many years before and after Dorothy Joe has passed away. Okay? She was one part of my life for over 65 years. In the end, things had come full circle. She fell when she was 89 years old. Instead of her with following surgery, she had a stroke. After the stroke, mother considered a wheelchair and required nurses 24 hours a day. And I have an elevator installed so the nurses could take mother downstairs and out among the flowers she loved. We remained close all her through life. How could we not? We have been close from the very beginning. From the years we was just the two of us. In 10 states, one in Indian radiation in South Dakota, in small towns in Texas, Missouri, in small snowbound freezing Dakota winters, and driving in dusty roads in the 1920 Chevrolet Colt with a rumble seat to that she. This might be the last page of this episode. Anyway, had when it was small. She lived to a good old age, small, almost out of the 20th century. I died here in Hollywood. It's a incredible journey. She was an amazing woman. She said, we're going to be good partners after my father died. Things are going to be fine. She was right. She made sure with her strength, tenderness, and acknowledges that things will turn out fine. Let's be sure. So that was chapter 6. I have to say, this was one of the biggest moments with Bob Barker's mom that I have ever seen in the history of Bob Barker's life. That was episode 4, episode 28 of Book Reviews. Hope you enjoy it. Stay tuned for the next one. It's going to be chapter 7 of the book. And this might be I just got done with the first half of the book, which is going to be chapter 7 of the book of Priceless Memories. I'm reading the next chapter of the book. It might be, let's say, Up and Away as a Naval Aviation Cadet. And then it might be the last, and that'll be the last chapter I'm reading to you all today, where I'm taking this from. But, my request. Till next time, Sue Joe's Bob's a baby. Good morning, Miss Sue. Till this is out. See ya.